What's going on, Rhino Nation? So today I want this episode to be all about creative financing, how to invest in real estate right now without using banks, any of your own credit. It doesn't matter what your credit is, and also doesn't matter what your cash position is. Guys, my name is Brent Bowers. I've been doing land since 2016. Before that, I had rental properties. I started practicing and learning real estate in 2004. I got my real estate license in 2007. To be a good real estate investor, having a real estate license was not what I needed to do. To be a good real estate investor, each day you just need to go out there and take action. But what action to take? Today I want to talk about 5 ways you can use creative financing to do your real estate, have your real estate business, and have your real estate dreams. Not all of us got into real estate to get rich. A lot of us did, but really me personally, I wanted time freedom. I wanted financial freedom. What does time freedom mean to me? It meant being able to do anything that I wanted to do basically without having to ask a boss. And from 2009 to 2018, I was in the military. I still have bad dreams of some of the bosses I had in the military. Literally just was having one last night. And it was crazy. The dream was I was on this trip with my wife and my family. That was weird. I was actually back in my hometown, hours away from where I needed to be at work. But I left work like 3 hours early and my boss called me and I was literally having a panic attack in my dream. I'm just remembering this right now. There have been times in the military where my grandfather was actually on his deathbed when I was stationed at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I took off. I basically went AWOL, is what we call that in the military, in order to go and see him for about a day. And I remember one of my other bosses calling me, asking me where I was. And I said, "Sir, I can't tell you. I'm just not going to even lie to you." But anyhow, let's get back to starting in real estate, whether you're starting out, no credit, little credit, bad credit, no money. I want to talk about the 5 ways that you can start doing real estate deals right now. The first one, my favorite, is owner financing, or we also call this seller carryback. I'm gonna talk about a land deal I did in Florida. And guys, maybe you're not into land, maybe you're into mobile home parks. I'm actually buying a mobile home park at the end of this month, closing on it, and the seller is giving me a seller carryback for 12 years. Fully amortized at 4% interest. Guys, check the interest rates right now. They suck. One of the biggest searches is right now, according to ChatGPT, is what are the current interest rates currently today? But I'm gonna talk about this land deal I bought for $75,000 back in 2016. The seller wanted $30,000 down. That seller was willing to give me a seller carryback at 0% interest as long as I came up with the $30,000 down that he wanted. I didn't have $30,000. That was my problem in 2016. I'm a brand new second lieutenant in the Army. I went from green to gold. Basically, I was a sergeant to going to a lieutenant. We just moved across the country. Long story short, I was broke. I had one baby. We had just had our first baby, and he was just born in January. And I called USAA, and I got a personal loan at 14% interest. So my credit wasn't super great either. We just bought a house, but I gave that seller that $30,000 down, and I turned around and I sold that property for $159,900. And I got $29,000 down from that buyer. And that allowed me to almost pay off USAA. I saw like a $1,000 balance. And I gave him a 30-year mortgage at 4% interest. And basically I had to pay my seller $400 a month. I was collecting a little over $638 a month. I collected payments for a little over, I think, 6 years. And my buyer died. Kind of sucks, actually. His siblings ended up getting the land through probate. They kept paying me. And when I transferred that land over, I had collected thousands and thousands of dollars of payments, and they still had about a balance of $158,000. So I did the math on about 6 years of owning that property. I also leased out the one of the pastures. There were some other deals I did with it. I made over $150,000 by doing what's called a seller carryback. And I'm also going to combine another one. It's called wraparound mortgage. It's basically where I had the mortgage and then I sold it and I gave my buyer a mortgage. It's called a wraparound mortgage. So that was actually going to be number 5. But I'll call that number 2 today. So we start with seller carryback, owner financing. Number 2 is wraparound mortgage. And sometimes you can combine these things. You can use them as force multipliers and combine them to help you out in your real estate deals. So that's called a wraparound mortgage. So technically my seller that did the seller carryback for me, seller financing, seller carryback, these are kind of the same words. So we use them interchangeably. That seller was in the first position. Now, if I didn't pay him, he can basically take that land back from me. I was in the second position When I sold the land to my buyer, I'm just gonna call him Bob the buyer for anonymity. But if Bob stopped paying me, I still had to pay my seller in the first position, Sam the seller, or he could take it from me. Let's talk about another one. Let's talk about number 3, subject to deals. Oh, let me back up on the wraparound mortgage. Not all title insurance companies and closing attorneys will do this. So you want to reach out and find out who works with investors. The best way to do that is, just Google sell my house fast, whatever city, state you're operating in, maybe it's St. Lucie County, Florida. Sell my house fast, St. Lucie County, Florida, and reach out to the top 3 home buyers that come up on Google and just say, hey, my name's Brent, or whatever your name is. My name is Brent Bowers. I am a land investor. I also build mobile homes on my land. I'm not competing with you. I'm just looking to see if you would please refer me to an investor-friendly title insurance agent. If you need one in St. Lucie County, Florida, I recommend Michelle Leacock with First International Title. Tell her I sent you. Maybe she'll throw in a closing for free one day for me. But let's talk about the subject to deals. I bought a lot of house on subject to existing financing. I've never purchased a piece of land subject to existing financing. I have purchased land with mortgages on it, but we paid the mortgages off. But not a lot of my land deals have mortgages on them. It's one way to not have to deal with banks when you get into land. And I'm just gonna plug land for a minute. It's like the easiest, fastest, most affordable way to get started in real estate. I'll leave it at that. If you want to talk about doing some land deals, go to thelandsharks.com, mention this podcast, Wholesaling Inc. podcast, and let's get back to the subject to existing financing deals. So I've done a number of them actually. How I'm buying this mobile home park is I did a 1031 tax exchange. I purchased a house in Colorado subject to existing financing. So basically about 5 or 6 years ago, this seller wanted to sell us a house, and I no longer buy houses, just full disclaimer right now. I love land. I love putting brand new mobile homes on land. I think that's where the most demand in the market is right now, new affordable houses on land. And I'm also buying mobile home parks with that money to further increase my rental income that I get every month, as well as I get to depreciate. 100% bonus depreciation is back, baby. But the subject to existing financing, I paid full retail for this house over 5 years ago, but the seller had to keep the mortgage in his name, and I took ownership of this property. So it went in one of my LLC names. I got what's called a special power of attorney or a limited power of attorney to be able to speak to the mortgage company indefinitely with that seller's social security number on it, email, phone number, all the above, so I can communicate with that mortgage company as if it were my mortgage as well. Number 2, I had to basically transfer the insurance policy into my name as me as the owner of that insurance policy with that seller as an interested third party, as well as the bank on there, because we have a mortgage. We needed a have a insurance coverage on it. Now, let me tell you, I learned this the hard way, but I've had insurance companies not pay because the contract was with the insurance company and the seller, and I wasn't on that contract. So I have had to eat. One time it was a $41,000 renovation because we had a boiler explode. So unfortunately, that was a very expensive seminar I had to take, and I pray that you don't have to do that by just literally watching this video or listening to this podcast, however you're consuming the content. You're welcome. That was a bad day, by the way. So I sold this house finally. We paid the seller. We saved this credit, and I have a little over 100K to put down on a mobile home park. How did I get 100K? We had principal pay down. We had a little bit of appreciation. So I had a tenant in there for the last 5 years. And oh, by the way, my mortgage payment, the rent I was getting was break even for the mortgage payment. So I was not making money at all on this house. How we made money was mortgage pay down, as well as basically just a little bit of appreciation. That is what's called a subject to existing financing. Some people buy this in estates. I've bought many of those, over 10 now. I've never had a mortgage company say, give me a due on sale clause. You've transferred the property, the mortgage is due in full. They don't usually say that when you're paying the mortgage on time or early, as well as keeping the property up, as well as have tenants in there. So I've never had any issues. Some people might have. Definitely talk to a attorney about that. Yeah, disregard that. I'm not going to give that contract out. I just recommend just speaking to an attorney. Make sure that it's legal in your state. Success for me is sleeping very, very well at night. So let's get into number 4, lease options. So I don't usually buy properties with a lease with the option to buy. However, I've sold many of my rental houses with lease with the option to buy. So what I'll do is I'll get an option payment for them to buy at a certain price. And what I do is I'll have that for 2 years. And if it goes past that 2 years, there's an extension fee for another option. Some people put on there where that will increase by 1% a year as far as the purchase amount. That way, if the property appreciates massively, which I've had many of them appreciate huge, and I did not have that increase, that 1% a year increase or the 3% a year increase on my contract. So I missed out on a lot of that appreciation, and my option buyer ended up getting that. So they made out like bandits. However, let me tell you the good part about it is I did not have to make any repairs whatsoever on any of those houses. One of them I did for 5 years in Palm Bay, Florida, but I didn't have to make any repairs. My mortgage was being paid down. I still kept ownership of that property. They were leasing it from me with the option to buy. So I could have evicted those people if they stopped paying me and kept their option money. Now, I've done several of those. Some people just walk away from that option money because life happens. You know, a couple of years go by, they realize they're not moving to that area or job change. They'll just walk away from that option money. I recommend a good attorney to draw up that lease with the option to buy. And I had an attorney present when we drew up the paperwork in my office every time we sold one of these with lease with the option to buy. I've even bought houses subject to existing financing and turned around and sold them on a lease with option to buy. That's some of the best deals ever. So you get the benefit of owning it with depreciation. I get to take that money off my taxes, and then I'm leasing that house out, and they gave me this option fee. So I get to pocket that money, and that just comes off their purchase price when they purchase a year or two from now. One of the tidbits, pro tips I recommend is have them speak to a mortgage banker ahead of time before you actually sell someone a property on a lease option, because you want to make sure that they can actually get funding within about 2 years. That mortgage banker will say yes or no usually, and sometimes you might have to weed through some people before you can actually sell one on lease with the option to buy. Last but not least is private and hard money lending. Guys, I have done so many deals with hard money lenders. I've paid hard money lenders 4 points and 12 and 13 and 14% interest. But one of the best things for me ever was sharing what I do, being a generous expert and sharing the deals that I'm doing and how I'm working with private money. When I started using regular people to lend money on my regular deals, my land deals, my deals where we buy a piece of land at a discount and then put a brand new mobile home on it, some of the best deals I've ever done has been with just regular people that lend me money, you know, anywhere from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12% interest. And their money is secured by real estate. We get a lender's title insurance policy. We get a title insurance policy. I don't touch the lender's money. It all goes to the title insurance company. That way it's protected. One of the biggest things I recommend for our lenders is before you send that wire to the title insurance company, call and verify the address, the phone number, look them up on Google, make sure you're calling the right number. Verify that account number, verify that routing number, because they're sending their life savings sometimes to do your deal. So you need to protect these lenders. I also do not recommend doing a deal with a private lender unless you're like below 70 cents on the dollar. So if the land's worth 100 or if the house is worth 100, don't borrow more than 70,000 because you want to protect that lender, because if you have to sell it at a fire sale, you at least want to be able to pay your lender back. And there's been times where I have had to have tough conversations with a hard money lender say, hey, I'm selling this property in this house on 100 acres. True story. When the interest rates went up in 2021, I had to sell it for about $250,000 less. I had a lot of my own cash locked up in it. I had to do a short sale with this lender, and I've almost paid them off on one of these properties. I just had to say, hey, can we walk this debt? Can we carry this debt to one of my other buildings that has a lot of equity in it? So we still secured the money, and I had to keep paying monthly payments until I paid that amount off. So I just want to recap. I hope you found some of this beneficial. Reach out, go to thelandsharks.com if you want to jump on a call, discuss your real estate investing goals. Maybe I left some of this questionable. If you had any more specific questions, I'd be honored to help you through it. We talked about owner financing, seller carrybacks, subject to existing financing deals. When you're selling a property, you can do a lease with the option to buy for your buyer, your tenant buyer is what I call them. And then private and hard money lending. Well, I think one thing I left out is how to get private lenders. I talked about sharing, being a generous expert, but share the deals you're doing. Talk about the deals you're doing. Talk about the education you're getting and just share with people and see if they'd be interested in doing a real estate deal with you. Last but not least, wraparound mortgages. I hope you found this episode valuable today. And here's what I encourage you to do. I just gave you a lot with this episode. I say, go go out there and talk to motivated sellers, talk to sellers, make offers. You should be making offers daily. I'm going to have a free giveaway on this. I created a PDF. This PDF is, the Land Sharks creative financing script. I'm going to give you a script that you can use. I want you to go to the Land Sharks, plural sharks, thelandsharks.com. And I'm doing this on the fly. I'm just creating this right now. thelandsharks.com/creative. And you can get that script on how to talk to these sellers. There's going to be multiple different options. That's the landsharks.com/creative. And that's spelled CREATIVE. thelandsharks.com/creative. God bless. Until next time, Rhino Nation.